Don't say, "Everything is fine." This phrase seems harmless, but in fact it is a signal not to the world, but to fate itself, and this signal is dangerous. As soon as you relax and decide that everything is fine, reality checks in. This is not mysticism, but simply the nature of things. Everything changes, nothing stays the same, and those who forget this pay dearly. In an old Eastern kingdom, there lived a man named Hakim. He was not a sage in silk robes or a saint on a pedestal, but a simple man with eyes that reflected the silence of the desert. His home was a clay hut, he drank water from an old well, and every day he learned to be silent. Because silence is not emptiness, but the ability to hear what is usually hidden behind the noise of words and the bustle of thoughts. People came to him, some with pain, some with doubts, some with pride. He listened to them silently, giving no ready answers, but his silence made them think more deeply than any words could. And then one day, on a particularly hot day, a man in rich clothing approached him. There was no shadow of doubt on his face, only smug calm. He sat down on a mat at Hakim's feet and said without asking for anything, "I didn't come for advice. I just wanted to say that everything is fine with me. My wife is beautiful, my children are healthy, money is flowing in, my business is growing, everything is as it should be." Hakim did not smile or nod approvingly. He just looked at him long and calmly, and then said quietly, "Be careful, traveler. Don't say that everything is fine with you." The rich man smiled, his smile contained slight contempt, an impatient desire for praise, and feigned surprise. "Why? Can't one enjoy life?" Hakim did not answer immediately. He stood up, leaning on his staff, and walked to the well. The guest, slightly puzzled, followed him. At the edge of the well, Hakim sat down and began to speak slowly, with long pauses, as if each word were born not from memorized truths, but from lived experience. Imagine a vessel made of very thin glass, almost invisible. It is filled with water, clean, cool, alive. You hold it carefully, respectfully. You know that if you tilt it slightly, the water will spill, and if you squeeze it too hard, it will crack. But as soon as you decide that the vessel is strong, that nothing will happen to it, you will loosen your grip. And that is precisely when the most dangerous thing will happen. The guest frowned. He didn't like this parable, he wanted simple approval, an easy explanation, and so he asked irritably, "Why can't we just be happy? Why can't we say to ourselves, 'Life has been a success'?" Hakim looked at him with a long gaze that contained neither anger nor condemnation, only a weary understanding of human nature. "You can be happy," he said at last, "but you can't take it for granted. Happiness is like the wind in the desert, it caresses your face, but then it goes away. As soon as you call your state of being good, you become attached to it. And everything you are attached to will be taken away from you, if not by the world, then by time. Everything you hold too tightly slips away. Everything you want to keep is the first to be destroyed." The rich man frowned even more, pressing his lips together. "But if I believe that everything will continue to be good, is that a bad thing? It's right to think positively." And then Hakim said something that knocked him off his feet, "That's the problem. When you believe that happiness will last forever, you become careless. You stop being attentive. Joy blinds you, but gratitude opens your eyes. Joy wants to take, gratitude learns to let go. Do you understand? Don't be afraid of joy, but don't call it yours forever. Be grateful for it, and let it go. That's the only way to preserve what is valuable. After all, even life is not yours forever, it is only given to you for a time." The guest lowered his eyes, but it was clear that he was still resisting. Then Hakim continued more quietly, as if addressing not only him, but everyone who had ever come to him with similar complacency, "You want to say to the world, 'I'm in control.' But the world does not tolerate such a challenge. As soon as you decide that you understand everything and have everything figured out, it will surely remind you of its power. That is why I tell everyone, don't say I'm fine, say I am grateful for this moment. Because a moment is all we have." The guest stood silently for a long time by the well under the scorching sun. His luxurious clothes no longer seemed so appropriate in this ancient and quiet truth. When he finally looked up at Hakim, there was no longer contempt in his eyes, only confusion and fear. But this was also the beginning of a journey on which a person learns to see, not just to possess. Joy requires silence, respect, and gratitude, not loud cries of "everything is fine with me." They continued walking through the desert, the sand rustling softly under their feet like silk, and Hakim began a new story. In a distant village lived 3 brothers. The eldest was rich, his house was full of servants, and his chests were overflowing with gold. The middle brother was a scholar, respected by all, sought after for his knowledge, with diligent and obedient students. The youngest was quiet, unassuming, and lived modestly. One day, they gathered around the table. The eldest said proudly, "Everything is wonderful for me, my servants are loyal, and gold flows like a river." The middle brother nodded and said, "Everything is fine for me, my students study diligently, and my name is respected." But the youngest brother was silent. When asked, he looked up and replied quietly, "I have a path. I wake up, thank heaven, work, and wait to see what the day will bring." A year passed. A storm hit the village and destroyed the eldest son's house. Illness took the middle son's students. And the youngest still woke up, thanked heaven, worked, and moved on. Because he was not tied down, and therefore did not lose himself. Hakim looked at his companion. Now there was a barely noticeable crack in his eyes, not external, but internal. Doubt. The one who had recently been beaming with smug confidence became more attentive. And that was the first step toward understanding. Hakim continued, "Fate does not punish pride because it is evil. It cuts off pride because everything that shouts loudly becomes deaf." There was a man named Zubair. Poor, quiet. But one day he won gold. And he began to tell everyone, "Finally, everything is good for me now." He drank, feasted, boasted. He forgot to thank heaven. He forgot to look deep inside himself. He forgot to listen to the silence. And one night his house caught fire. Everything burned down. His friends disappeared, his wealth melted away, his joy vanished. Only emptiness remained. When he came to me, I said to him, "You said, everything is fine with me. But you were not grateful. You were not attentive. You were not ready. You confused peace with celebration. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is readiness for anything. It is inner support. It is the ability to rejoice, but not to cling. To be silent when necessary. To be strong when the inevitable comes." When the sun began to sink toward the horizon, Hakim told another story. There was a caravan traveling through the desert. Everything was calm, there was water, there was food. One of the travelers said loudly, "What luck! Everything is wonderful." The old leader stopped and said, "Be silent. Don't call the storm." The next day, a terrible sandstorm blew in. Those who had boasted were confused. The old man saved the caravan. He was prepared. He knew that the desert does not tolerate arrogance. It is better to be grateful for peace than proud of luck. The traveler was silent. His posture changed, and his previous smile disappeared. His eyes became attentive, like those of a person who finally heard not just words, but the truth. And then he asked the question he should have asked from the beginning: "What should I say if I can't say I'm fine? What is the right thing to say?" Hakim smiled calmly, without mockery or admonishment, like a man who had heard this question 1,000 times but answered it differently each time. He said, "Say, today, the world, I am grateful. Say, as long as there is peace, I am not attached. Say, life changes, I observe. But never claim that you are beyond change. Because life itself is change." They returned to the hut as the sun was setting. The sand beneath their feet grew cool, and the sky above them was as deep as a bottomless well. The stars slowly began to emerge from the darkness. Hakim poured water from the well and handed the bowl to his guest. "Drink. This is not just water, it is a reminder. Everything you hold is not yours. Everything you love is temporary. Everything you fear will pass. So don't say, 'I'm fine.' Say, I'm on my way. Say it every day. And then, even when the winds of change rise, you will not lose yourself. Today, the gift was in the silence. The traveler drank the water silently, without saying another word. He simply stood up, bowed to Hakim, and walked away along the sandy path into the sunset. He never again uttered phrases that evoked pride or boastfulness. He became quieter, and in that silence, wiser. Because sometimes silence speaks louder than any words. His path did not become easy, but it became conscious. He no longer sought guarantees where there were none, nor did he build castles on the shifting sands of his desires. He learned to be grateful for every day, for every encounter, for every sip of water. And when joy or pain came into his life again, he met them with equal calm, knowing that everything passes and everything leaves a mark. People said about him, he's strange, too quiet, but those who were tired of the noise turned to him for advice. He didn't give ready-made answers, he simply knew how to listen. And those who spoke with him suddenly understood for themselves what they had long hidden from themselves. They say that once, when he had already turned gray and his face had become like the cracked earth of the desert, a young man came to him and asked, "What should I do to be happy?" He looked at him for a long time and said only, "First, learn to be attentive. Then, learn to be grateful. And happiness will find you." And when the young man wanted to ask more, he just put his finger to his lips and said, "Shoo, listen to the wind." The young man fell silent. He heard the wind rustling in the grass, the door creaking, his own breathing. And for the first time in a long time, he felt alive. And so people left him, not with promises, but with questions. But the questions were different now. Quieter. More honest. More important. And life went on. In the evening, Hakim sat by his hut, drank water from a clay bowl, and watched the sun sink behind the dunes. The sand cooled, the sky darkened, and the stars slowly emerged from their hidden infinity. He smiled. Not because everything was fine, but because everything was as it was. And in this he found his peace. Because peace is not a reward or a guarantee. It is a choice he made anew every evening. And if someone had come up to him at that moment and asked, "What should I say about my life?" he would not have answered right away. He would have let the person be silent. And then he would say quietly, almost in a whisper, "Don't say, everything is fine with me. Say, I am grateful. Don't say, I have found my happiness. Say, I am on my way." And he would fall silent again. Because the most important words are always drowned out by silence. And those who are ready to listen will hear everything they need to hear. I would like to apologize in advance for any errors in the text or dubbing. I am still learning, and the language used on this channel is not my native language. The dubbing was done using artificial intelligence. Please point out any errors so that I can correct them and improve the quality of the content. I would also be happy if you shared your thoughts on the topic. Your support in the comments motivates me to continue searching for new interesting stories. Thank you for your understanding and participation. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new stories.